Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the February 15th, 2024 Fee Committee meeting. There are 5 members of the Fee Committee, 3 counselors. They are the voting members, and the city manager and myself are non-voting members. Just a reminder that the fees in the fee schedule raise about 2% of the general fund revenues, the general fund fees. And with that, we'll get right onto the agenda. The first thing is the acceptance of minutes from March 6th, 2023.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Any discussion first?
Oh, any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. You can move it, right?
Thank you. Yep. We're first going to go to City Clerk's Department, which is on page 12 of the document.
To our chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I wonder if I could suspend the rules. I see we have Massimo here to talk about outdoor
Oh, right.
dining.
I'm sorry. You're right.
That's
I already blew it right out of the gate.
If we
Okay.
could perhaps, I would move that we move public comment up.
Do you need a vote to do that?
We need a vote.
And maybe it's a combination, given the timeliness in getting the council packet, which would include the outdoor dining fee in. We could, it might inform public comment. Could we take, it's your pleasure, we could take public comment first and then do the outdoor dining fee discussion first. We'll take that out of turn. Why don't we do that?
Yeah, I would propose we do public comment first.
all right.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
Sure. All those in favor of taking or having
Aye.
public comment?
Aye.
Great.
All right.
If you're coming up for public comment, kindly use the microphone in between Councilor Moreau and Ben Fletcher. Up on up. Hello, Massimo.
May I?
Welcome.
I get to sit next to Beth. This is very, also Beth, a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me here today.
Welcome.
I will try not to take up too much of your time, but I will kind of say,
You guys speak into the microphone, too.
yeah. This was just a general comment. When I have a...
I can't hear you online.
When
That's why you
that's
have to
good.
do it.
That's good. That's why I'm saying it. When I have a doctor's appointment, they used to set me up for 15 minutes visits, and they've learned to give me 45 minutes to an hour because it takes me 15 minutes to say hello, everybody, hello. I will do my best not to take up too much of your time. I am here to talk about, from a restaurant's perspective, outdoor dining, from the way I see it. I have some handouts if you'd be so kind to allow me to pass these out so I can go over them with you. There are 3 there. We'll start with this one. I have 8 copies. I don't know. I didn't realize there were going to be quite so many people.
Andrew and I can share. We're good.
Thank you so much. I'll do that. Thank you very much. And that's just some stats from the Restaurant Association of New Hampshire. So, just want to give you kind of my perspective of outdoor dining over the past few years. When we started outdoor dining after the pandemic, it was an absolute lifesaver for my restaurant. I don't know that we would have survived the first 2 years after the pandemic without the ability to do outdoor dining, especially at 50% capacity. The past 2 years have been a little different for outdoor dining. Last year in particular with the weather, it really threw things off. So I have some information for you to take a look at. I think I'd like to start with the first sheet here, which is the National Restaurant Association stats. There are, which is going to be this one here, if you'd be so kind. You have one of those?
Yep. Yes.
No, it's a different. You guys are looking at a different one.
We
Sorry
only got
about
2.
that. There should be one of these that was passed out. Does anybody have extra of these? Thank you so much.
Sorry, those didn't come with stretch.
All right, no worries. There are more of those. Thank you so much. Yeah, because this one's a little bit important. If you don't mind, and anybody who's involved in fees, I'd like to have them and have a copy of it. So the restaurant industry, for those of you who don't know, is a ton of work in a small amount of profit margins. In an extraordinary year, a restaurant that's doing all the right things in a perfect economy, great interest rates, The stock market is doing really well. You'd be looking at a maximum of 10% net profits. The average nationally, and you'll see this, I printed on both sides, you can just Google it and you'll find it all over the place, but the National Restaurant Association, you're looking at somewhere between 3 and 5% net profits for a restaurant. That's not a lot of money. In order for me to do, I have to do $1 million in sales at 5% to get $50,000 in net profits. So it just gives you an idea of what the net profits of a restaurant is. Fine dining, full-service restaurant. Bars are going to be a little less cost and more profit just because there's less labor involved. So depending on the type of restaurant that it is. The next information, so that's just, and you can Google it and get more stats on that. That's just to give you an idea for those of you who might not know what a typical restaurant might make annually. The next one is sort of a little spreadsheet that I did that has this pretty little picture of a customer of ours that painted that outdoor dining scene. I just put it on there as a reference point. This is my little quick cost for me to do outdoor dining. Permits for the city were $4,500. The city did stick an extra parking spot that wasn't there for 30 years. They kind of crammed it in there, so my fees will go up because there's an extra spot there. I don't know how that ended up there. Very tough to get out of Custom House Way with that new spot that was added there. But there are now 4 spots rather than 3. But last year was $4,500. The front of the house staff, to bring the additional staff, host is $14,000. Wait staff about $8,000. That's for a 16-week period, by the way, plus applicable payroll taxes on top of that. I have to bring in a staff member in the kitchen. We cannot run the outdoor additional space without an extra team member in the kitchen. I'm sure you're all aware what hiring is like today. It is nearly impossible to find good quality people. In order for me to bring in somebody for 2 months or 3 months in the kitchen is not going to happen. So we've made the decision to bring in an additional payroll line item of that, a full-time employee in the kitchen. It works really well in the summertime because we need them. The rest of the year we're finding projects for that person, but it is an additional $54,000. If you broke it up to a quarter, you could break that down and say, roughly $14,000 if you want to back that out of it. Storage fees. I have 2 units to store all my stuff. I have a lot of stuff, but it is just over $6,500 a year to store my outdoor dining stuff. I try and make the city pretty. I get Mandevilla plants and other plants out there. Just the cost of the plants is $2,400. To install and remove them is $1,700. Moving fees. I have to pay 4 members of my team. Nobody's going to get out there and lug furniture and lift those heavy things without $200 or $300 each a day. Those are my fees for moving. In the end of the season, same thing happens. Upgrades each year. I have to do new outdoor carpeting, upgrades to the POS. That's just, I put a really low number in there. And then insurance, I didn't break out the additional cost for the liability for the city. I didn't even include that in there. My guess is probably a few $1,000s. I have to advertise it and then train the staff. So for me to get outdoors, it cost me about $100,000. If we have a perfect year and all the stars line up, I can potentially make a little bit of money off of the 6 tables that I have out there. If we have a year like we had last year, 2023 summer, where it rained quite a bit, I took a huge hit outside. I lost a lot of money being out there. Finding staff. Where are you going to find somebody for 3 months? You're looking at school teachers. You hope, you pray that you can get a school teacher to come in. They're not able to start till July, the end of June. Then you need a few weeks to train them. The 3rd week in August, they're gone. So now I cannot use that outdoor dining to its full capacity. I'm not able to open it up in May and run it through October. It's really a couple months and I'm able to do it. Again, it cost me roughly $100,000 to be out there. That doesn't include cost of goods sold and other expenses that come along with that, right? So I need to do $1 million in sales to break even out there. I'm not doing $1 million. 2 years ago, 3 years ago with the pandemic, we were doing some volume out there because the capacity indoors was limited and nobody wanted to be inside. I will just say, I don't personally care either way. I think the general public loves outdoor dining. It's the vibe I get. It's what I hear from everybody. I think people like it. I think it's a wonderful asset for the community if it's done right. If the fees keep going up and not down, there's no way I'm going to be out there. You'll end up with bars that are serving alcohol that need 1 waiter who throw some picnic tables and umbrellas out there and off they go. If you're looking for fine dining, myself, Julie stopped doing it because it wasn't feasible for her at Cure. In other restaurants, we're just not going to be able to do it. The fees cannot go up, in my opinion. The revenues that are made up for outdoor, you guys talk about parking, it makes absolutely no sense. I hear it over and over again. I'm not saying you guys in this room in general, that taking those parking spaces is costing the city. It is, in my opinion, it is not costing the city. I am on the committee for the Restaurant Week through the Chamber of Commerce. In 10 days, we brought in 75,000 people during Restaurant Week. Those 75,000 people are coming in and spending money. The city's never, that I'm aware of, really ever at 100% capacity in parking. If they're not using the spaces right out in front of my restaurant, they got to pull down the air, and they're still generating revenue. They're not leaving the city because there's no parking. Plenty of parking. The Foundry Garage is never full. There's always areas people can park and bring that revenue. They might not be using my 3 or 4 spaces, but they're able to bring that revenue in. This one here is just sort of a little, nothing too important, but some stats put out by the state of New Hampshire. Talks about the jobs, the money that's generated from restaurant, $4.4 billion annually for New Hampshire, the amount of jobs that it creates, the amount of revenues that are brought in by the additional people outdoor dining. That's where your revenue is coming from, not those 3 or 4 spaces that I'm taking up. So again, that's my opinion. I've been at this for 30 years in Portsmouth. I'm pretty well versed in the parking situation. Just putting those additional fees on the restaurant is an incredible burden that is not making it worth our while to be out there. So if you want to see a bunch of bars serving alcohol and not real restaurants out there that do what you wish for the fees, if you're looking to have fine dining restaurants out there, I cannot support being out there even if you approve it with the fees going up. That's what I got for you. In a nutshell, tried to spell that out, not take up too much of your time. I know you're all busy. Are there any questions for me, thoughts, concerns?
Normally, we don't take questions during public comment, but
Oh.
I sense there's a desire to take questions.
Well, I have a curiosity of, wouldn't you want to see it to be fairly charged between who gets sidewalk space and who gets parking spaces?
Beth,
I'm just curious.
Councilor Monroe, I haven't really given that a lot of thought. I haven't. I think it would be, if I was to give it a little quick thought, there needs to be a fee that's going to be less for people who are just taking up sidewalk space versus street space, because now there is no revenue differences. But if you balance that revenue of money that's coming into the city by having those additional spaces, I think it's a wash. I don't think the city's losing any money from parking.
I'm just
I don't
thinking
get it.
fairness to the restaurants.
I agree.
That's
Yep,
why I'm
yep.
asking. If
Yep.
you feel like it would be more fair as long as there
Yep,
was an equal charge.
I may. You know, Popovers is a great example. The sidewalk is there. I don't think that they should be paying the rate that somebody who's taking the parking spaces, in my opinion, are. I think the people taking the parking spaces should probably a little bit more. But certainly less than it was last year, because we can't afford to be out there otherwise.
Thank you for coming.
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you for your time. And anything else I can help with?
Thank you for the material.
Any other members of the public wish to speak?
And just,
Nope.
are we just doing outdoor dining or all of the public comments?
I would say we could do both if you were to
Okay.
so
Well-
much indulge.
What's your preference?
From my perspective, I don't know anything yet.
Sure.
You're going to present, so I would kind of like to wait to
Okay,
see.
let's do the,
All right.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Is it okay? I'll hand you some of those so that you have the information. Thank you very much. I'll just step
Yeah,
aside if any.
If we could request that we suspend rules, maybe you have an idea, Councilor Tabor?
Oh, no, I just wanted to thank Massimo and mention that he is New York Times' most romantic restaurant in the Northeast.
Thank you very much.
Booked solid for the week.
Thank you so much. The only restaurant to make the 100 list in the country in New Hampshire and one of 6 in New England. I'm honored after 30 years to get any kind of accolade and to be receiving national recognition is humbling. So
Very big
thank you all very much. Thank you for that, sir.
Mr. Chair, I would actually like to suspend the rules to bring forward the outdoor dining fees, which I believe is on Roman numeral 3, page 11.
That is correct. All those in favor?
We need it. Need a second?
Oh, we got a
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. On to the outdoor dining encumbrance, which is on page 11.
And for those following along on Zoom or in the room, we're going to show things up on the screen. So, Peter, do you want to introduce this item?
Sure, yeah. Peter Britz, Director of Planning and Sustainability. I have some handouts just for context here.
More handouts.
More handouts. I think I have enough for everybody. I'm going to, I guess, keep up with that. I don't know if there's enough for the public or not, but I'll go through it. It's not. So I put this together more for context, and I can go through it quickly just to give you some background. This isn't a recommendation by any stretch. It's more just some of the costs. I also have, if people are interested, I have a table that shows all the outdoor dining from the last season. It has some of the costs, the fees we charged, and the areas that got permits for outdoor dining. So just a reminder, the 2023 fees were $5 a square foot for setups on city sidewalks. If you used a parking space, that was $1,500 per parking space. Or if there was a loss of a parking space due to the loading zone being taken up or a travelway being taken up. So the cost of a loss of a parking space or a parking space, either way, was $1,500. If you calculate that out on a space that's 8 by 19 feet, that would be $987 per square foot. If you didn't have a minimum application fee, or didn't, the minimum application fee is $1,000. So if you had a small sidewalk, you'd still have to pay $1,000, even if you're under the 1,000. And then there was a reduction. I don't believe anybody took advantage of it last season, but minus $200 off the fee if you could demonstrate that you were composting from your business. So, and a note that in certain places where there's private property, if they have private property in front of their business, the fee was waived for that. They still needed to get a license. Port Walk Place was another example where that took place because that's private. In terms of additional costs to the city, I just wanted to list, what the city spends in a rough sense. There's some background in the other pages. I'm not going to go through all that, but if you have questions, you might be able to. We might be able to pull it out of that. But just overall, based on some information from Parking and Public Works, the cost of a parking space during the outdoor dining season will be $3,056 in revenue earned. So that's if you were to consider it as an 8 by 19 foot space, that would be about $20 per square foot. Additionally, every time someone puts up a setup in the parking space or the travelway with traffic, there's a setup fee for the barricades that are put up for those spaces, and that, with some math that's in the packet as well, it amounted to about $199 in a rough estimate of how much it costs to set up an individual space for a season. That's kind of assuming everything happens at the same time, and unfortunately people trickle in, and so the Public Works has to mobilize a number of times, and it ends up probably costing a little more, but that was a way we could calculate. Eric Eby provided that information. And then in terms of what it costs the business owner, we're requiring in the ordinance, at least the ordinance that's before the council right now, that a cost of a parklet is $1,364. The building inspector did some rough math and came up with that number, because it is a fair amount to construct something that's level with the curb that goes out into the parking space. And there'll be a one-time cost if they do it year after year, but it certainly is a cost to them, that for your guidance there. And then the other cost to business owners that's not really easy to calculate would be the barriers and barricades and things that they put up to define their space, whether it's to protect for their liquor license or just to define that space as that restaurant's dining space for the staff at the restaurant. So those are sort of the background things you can chew on as you decide how you want to go about the outdoor dining fee.
Counselor.
And to complete the frame of the conversation, Tuesday night at the council meeting, we will bring third and final reading of the outdoor dining ordinance that needs to be informed by the fee. And when we get into application mode, which will start March 1st, the idea is we need to know what the fees are so that that can help inform the votes on Tuesday. So.
question, then I'm going to make a motion. Peter, the $20,000 you have on the back for page 2, what it costs to set up and break down in the ideal world, has that been factored in previous years? Like, does that come from the minimum fee, or is this a new fee that the EDC's proposing?
The $20,000 isn't a fee at all. This is a calculation of what it would cost Public Works if you were to
Okay.
calculate the time it took them to do all the setups for the season. So it's
The
just
first time
a,
we've laid this out.
yeah,
Okay,
it's just
so-
a way to look at what the costs amount to overall.
All right, so there's not a proposed additional amount?
No, 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 just background.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to motion that we recommend to the city council to continue the $5 flat rate per square foot. There's a second, I'll just speak to that.
I'll second that.
And ideally, I think we should just be doing per square foot versus parking spaces. The parking spaces, they're all different sizes, whether it's 8.5 feet wide, 9 feet wide, 9.5 feet wide. The lengths are all different. There'll be far less people doing outdoor dining this season than the first go-around, and possibly, hopefully not, but possibly last year. So I think we'd have the ability to go and measure where it's going to be more fair. And one thing that Massimo said was where there used to be 3 parking spaces, there's now 4 parking spaces. So under formula where we break apart square footage versus parking space, we'd be paying more money for the same amount. So I just think it would be fair to go with just square footage. And as far as keeping the fee the same, we're asking more for restaurants this time than we have in the past. Under the ordinance, we're requiring some to be flush. That's going to cost money. Some are going to have to buy all new furniture because it's not going to be what's being required this year. So I think for this upcoming season, it should remain at $5 a square foot across the board.
Is it possible to do that for parking spaces? Because I thought you can't have less than a whole parking space, right? So I guess my question to the staff is, can you do it per square foot with parking spaces?
My thought would be you still have to pay for the whole parking space, but parking spaces are different sizes. So you'd be paying square footage, but you pay for the parking space. That makes sense.
I could speak to that briefly. The rationale originally was the loss of revenue per parking space, and so the dimension was the dimension on that parking space. It may vary a little bit, but it didn't adjust or change the revenue. I mean, if it was a 19.5 foot versus a 19 foot or versus 18 foot, it still was generating the same pretty much revenue. So it wasn't a, you're displacing that parking space. It was the original rationale on how the numbers were brought. Obviously it was a much higher dollar value that was originally proposed or recommended. Council decided to adjust that. Obviously it's a policy decision. So in terms of measuring the spaces, that's not difficult. Getting somebody to agree that the same, we measure it and this is what it is, would have to be clear that we measure it, we define it. It's not, you can't go back and, if you choose to only use 75% of what was measured and designated, we would say, here's your space. So that's something, we could do and we could manage. But I could see people, trying to game it a little bit.
Right. I think it would have to be based off of city measurements only.
Yes.
And my other caveat to that would be a one-time only, and I think that we have to make the anticipation that would have to possibly go up a year from now, the per square foot costs. Just because if that lowers per parking spot by a lot, right?
This will be something we look at every year.
Yeah.
Through fee committee.
That's more for those two to let them know.
Yeah, in the ordinance, the fee will not be written. It says refer to the fee
The
committee.
fee committee.
So every year it'll be reviewed.
We can take a look at that.
I think it's important to note that it will be considered every year.
So I agree with Councilor Denton that we don't want to raise fees. And the reason I agree is that I do think the overall economic benefit, and we saw it in parking revenue, the overall economic activity we're stimulating is greater. And I wouldn't want to raise rates where the independent restaurant owner has to back out of the program. And so a small increase in revenue for the city, tiny increase in revenue for the city, takes 10%, 20%, 30% of the restaurants out of the program, and we lose the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I think you need enough participation around the city to draw people here. How many square feet in a parking space? My
It's right here.
memory is.
It's right here. It's 987 is
On an
approximately.
8 by
based off of
19,
50.
it would be 150.
So it's actually lowering the costs.
Right,
per
8 by
parking
19 is
space.
about the average parking
I
space.
think so.
Parallel's a little longer, about 22 feet, but
It's
tomato,
the
tomato.
average.
Yeah.
So we're not raising them, we're actually lowering them is what it boils down to. That's why I wanted to make sure we're very clear. I just want it to be fair. That's my biggest concern.
Can I ask a clarifying question? The $5 per square foot, is that no matter where you are?
That is my thought. I know there's, Council Moreau asked a question, should sidewalks be paying, yes, more or
Same.
less?
I think it should be fair. I think it should be the same myself.
Agreed. I think it should be the same across the board. And if you wanted to get into fairness, and I'm not advocating this, but I'm playing devil's advocate here, is the people in the parking space should actually pay less than the sidewalks. They have to pay more to create a platform, which you don't have to pay for on the sidewalk. But I think it would be fair, just keep it for everyone, the same amount.
Right, I mean, that's what the sidewalks are paying now. So now we're making it fair that that's a lower fee than what you've been paying for parking spaces, but you have to build the parklet this year.
Yes.
Which is why I said it should definitely be looked at every year
So-
based off of this.
So it sounds like you're saying $5 per square foot, 6-month season, no proration, and skipping a line in the chart down to use of parking space, $5 a square foot, and we will round up. If it's only using part of a parking space, we're gonna, how do we calculate that, Peter?
You have to use the whole parking space.
That's
You have to
what I was going to
calculate the
ask.
square
Is it-
footage using the whole parking space. And then the last question would be minimum fee. Is there, given we're charging $5 a square foot, can you, does the $1,000 minimum fee still apply as a relevant number? Should that number change?
You might want to adjust the number. We'd have to look at that. So $5 a square foot times 164. I didn't do that math. 152,
Do that,
excuse me.
okay.
Times 154 is
152.
770.
5 times 152 is 760.
Yeah, he did 154, but, so 152 is how much?
760.
760. So if a person had only one parking space, which a number of people do, the minimum would then kick them up to 1,000 if we kept it at 1,000. So to answer your question, there's conceivably a bunch of people would have
Higher
parking
fees.
space and need to bring it up to the minimum and
So the
not pay the
question,
$5.
thank you. So the question is, do you want to set a minimum? And if so, what's the amount?
I don't think a
I
minimum
think
is necessary.
750,
750, yeah.
because 750 would bring you very
Councilor
close to
Moreau
what
hit
that's.
the bullseye, yeah.
But is that a minimum for,
Yep.
minimum for
Anywhere.
Anyone.
sidewalk
Anywhere.
or, okay.
Loading zones, travelways, sidewalks, parking spaces. Make it fair across the board.
I'm thinking of a space that's not a parking space, but that's rather narrow. Can you think of one? Is anyone going to be unduly harmed by this, is my question. No, because 1,000 was the minimum last year.
We're going down on the
Everybody-
minimum, so I don't think you
Everybody paid
are.
at least 1,000.
Right,
That's
so if
the
you
one.
had less than that, we're already lowering it now by
Okay.
$250, so I don't think anyone would be harmed that way.
But it becomes uniform.
It's very uniform, which has been my argument all along. It wasn't uniform, and I think it really should be. I know there's the argument to the cost because of the loss of parking, but they're going to park somewhere else. If people don't like outdoor dining, they're just not going to come. And if they do, they're going to find a place to park.
And as I recall, at our peak, it was 82 spaces that were taken out of circulation.
Maybe they'll take public transportation. Wouldn't that be great?
So let's say it's 70,
Ben,
70.
do you know what the utilization was last year? It was less than 70 parking spaces.
For,
for outdoor dining. I think the
40
number you're
number spaces.
remembering
40.
was,
It was 40, that's what I have, but not all of them
yeah,
had.
39 is what's in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, 40
40 is what the table says, but I believe a couple were no
and
fee.
given that there will be, well, the ones that will not be allowed this year weren't taking up parking spaces necessarily. So if we base it on last year, there would be 40 spaces.
And on average, Ben, are there 40 parking spaces available in the Foundry Place garage?
Depends on the time of day, but
So the loss,
for now,
the change in revenue to the city of Counselor Denton's amendment is $29,600, which in the grand scheme of things is, I would argue, is de minimis.
Yeah, I would argue the same.
Right, so I think we've achieved all the categories we needed to cover. I'm looking at Senior Assistant City Attorney Farini because she's going to run upstairs and put all this in the council packet.
What else does she need, is what you wanted to
I think we've covered everything.
Just those two numbers?
Okay.
5 and 6.
So can I just clarify, so the $5 a square foot is this price based on the actual size of the parking space? And in some cases,
As measured by the city.
as measured by the city,
Compost.
and in some cases, they use a parking space and some of the sidewalk. So they calculate the total area of their outdoor dining parking lot, parking space and sidewalk, and $5 a square foot for all of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you also want to leave in, change, or remove the reduction or waiver in the event a restaurant uses compostable?
I'll speak to that. Since the now soon-to-be ordinance essentially requires it, because it's city property, I don't think it's necessary to have the $200 waiver.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. You would remember that.
So just to recap, we're mentioning $5 a square foot wherever you would use the area. There's a minimum fee of $750 and no inclusion of any waiver amount this year.
So that is the motion. Would I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right, it passes.
Get raised.
Thank you.
Should I just add one little comment or just make a
Pop
statement
pop
quickly?
to the microphone if you don't mind.
Hello, members of the fee committee. So we will edit that, the document will be ultimately the adopted fee, just so everybody knows, based on the city measurements and the minimum parking, that will all be in the permit. It won't be in the actual adoption of fee. So I just want to clarify that for everybody, that we'll have explanations for that
We
in the
can
permit.
talk to that at the meeting, too.
Yep.
Thank you, Jane.
All right, back onto the agenda. The city clerk, page 12.
Yes, thank you.
And Massimo, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to do what you need to do.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
your
you for
time
being here.
today,
Thank you.
too. Appreciate it.
So there are 3 fees that we are requesting to eliminate for one of the fees. It's lack of people requesting them. The ordinance books, they're online, they have been online for years, and that's really where people go to get their information. Nobody comes in and buys an ordinance book anymore, and nobody buys the supplements that we provide twice a year. So basically, we would eliminate that fee, and that would be $100 for an ordinance book and $50 for the supplements. Now they can get their information right online. They can access it at the library as well. And the last fee would be the voter history disc. That is because the state of New Hampshire passed a new law back in July of 2022 that eliminated the availability to get a voter history disc on a city level anymore. You can get it through the state level only if you meet certain criterias. So,
All right, any questions for Kelly? Can I have a motion to accept her suggestions? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on to page 43.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. The Recreation Department,
We have Recreation Director Todd Henley with us.
page 43.
So this is just a pretty simple, we've had, an increase in requests to use the lights at Leary at our turf field and at Alumni Field. And so with the increase of energy costs, we're just looking to bump that fee up a little bit to help cover some of those.
Any questions for the director? Councilor Moreau?
I see a lot of fees that have been in here for a long time that haven't changed in a long time. And why aren't we going up on any of those? Like, especially non-resident participated in things. I see a lot that have been.
So that is really just for like Little League and some of like the co-ed sports softball leagues and stuff like that. That's just they don't have a ton of non-residents that play in those leagues, so it's just an added-on fee for them. And so those leagues at the end of the season then pay us for the non-residents that play in that league. We haven't deemed it something that has been needed to be looked at, but I'm happy to look at that again too.
I just think we need to really start looking at all of the non-residents that come in and use our facilities and try to discount more for our residents and charge more for the people that come in and want to use our stuff because they're not paying taxes, so they're not going towards it, and tax dollars maintain it. So I think we need to really start to look at what residents are getting versus what non-residents are getting. Not to be a pain, but I feel strongly about that.
Any other questions for Todd?
Right, especially the pool. I think those fees should go up. No, that's my only complaint.
All right, can I have a motion to accept his one change in fees?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. And all those in favor? Oh.
Oh,
Go right ahead.
All those in favor?
aye.
All right, moving on to the Health Department, page 45.
The deputy health officer had to step away to a time-sensitive issue, so she left me in charge of her request. And there is one change to the annual food permit fee for caterers. And the reason to, the request would be to increase the fee from $150 to $200. The reason for this suggestion is this is a reflection of the staff time that it takes to permit and inspect the businesses. And she also recommends, and I think I have to turn the page for you all to see this, two changes in the temporary events food permit category. Please note that Portsmouth businesses licensed with the Health Department are exempt from temporary event permit fees, so this only applies to non-Portsmouth businesses. There are two categories of temporary event permits. A permit for vendors who sell or sample prepackaged goods, like think hot sauce, jams, and a permit for vendors who conduct on-site preparation of food. So the request would be to increase the sell sample permit fee from $15 to $50. And again, the reason for this would be due to the staff time it would take to permit and inspect vendors at the events. And there is, to note, there is no increase to the food permit with on-site prep, which is currently $125. The time to permit and inspect is roughly the same. So to round out this conversation, the request would be to increase the limited events food permit fee from $150 to $200, with a limit of one limited events permit allowed per year. And the reason for this is that limited event permits are issued to out-of-town licensed vendors who plan on attending up to 4 seasonal temporary events in Portsmouth. Provides a break in permit fees to them from paying for 4 separate temporary event fees.
Which makes sense.
We'd like to encourage attendance. We just want to be compensated appropriately. And we, again, the request is due to staff time. I think I heard a statistic that between now and October, there are health department staff on duty every weekend permitting something. And it takes a significant amount of time and effort.
Do these fees actually cover the extra costs that cost the city to go out like on weekends and off actual hours?
It reflects what they think is appropriate and given what other health officers are charging in similar communities.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Will we accept those changes?
Second.
Second. Any more comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the Public Works, page 35.
Peter, is that you starting?
Director of Public Works.
That is me.
Peter Rice.
Good afternoon. Peter Rice, Director of Public Works. The first item that we're looking to adjust is our blasting permit fee. The the blasting permit process goes through fire, police, DPW. It incurs more time than we're currently covering, and these additional costs reflects what we're calculating to be a reasonable capture of the time it takes to do this type of thing. I'm going to just continue.
Yeah, just keep on going. Any questions on that one?
Those specific?
Why don't you just go through them all and
Okay.
we'll come back.
Driveway permit, looking to just to adjust based on the time, the additional costs relative to personnel time on that one.
36.
Excavation permit, again, it's an adjustment just to reflect inflation and additional costs of operations. And in terms of the expedited permit, it's just a reflection of the cost plus. If they want it faster, it takes, we have to drop what we're doing and get that stuff pushed through. The crack sealing fee is really a reflection on materials increase. Cost of the crack sealing material. It's an asphalt-based material, and it's gone up in price. Similar to the ordinance book that Kelly referred to, the city clerk referred to, the
36.
items on
37.
page 37 are all digital now and are all accessible, and it's really, nobody has asked for any of this stuff in a very long time, so we might as well just clean it up. Towards the bottom, we are adjusting the fee associated with wooden barricades and metal barricades. We've seen a lot of barricades either damaged or disappear, and this is just trying to adjust it to make it a little bit more value to that. And then adding event delivery and pickup. It's a pretty labor-intensive exercise to be able to get all the barricades and things like that out.
So
38, oh, sorry.
does this mean that the public can no longer get a map from, no, those come from the planning department.
You're talking about zoning maps.
Zoning maps, neighborhood maps, street maps.
You can get them from the planning department.
Yeah.
Yep. We do charge a print fee.
Page 38.
Waste disposal. The yard waste disposal is really just capturing the smaller loads that folks are dropping off. Not everybody comes in with 4 yards, so we're looking at a smaller truck because a lot of the contractors come in and say, "Hey, I have a pickup truck, not a dump truck." So we're working to reflect that in the first one. Clean wood is really acknowledging that some of the wood that comes in is, even if it's clean, it's expensive. You can't get it you still have to dispose of it, and there's a cost associated with it.
What is clean wood?
It's wood that doesn't have commingled plastic on it and other laminates and other material. It's really
Other
scrap.
than lumber.
Yeah, it's lumber. And again, that's the 4-yard and 2-yard combination. And then bulky waste pickup. This is the fee for picking up. If people call and say they want to, instead of bringing the refrigerator themselves, this really just reflects the time it takes and the cost associated with getting a vehicle out there with 2 staff members.
39.
We want to create a wood furniture. A lot of folks are getting rid of furniture. There's a cost associated with getting rid of that furniture. It comes in, it's usually broken up, and it's just garbage. So this is just a way to capture that cost, and then as well as the gas grill at the bottom.
Any questions for Peter? Councilor Moreau?
Gas grills, I'm assuming that's not including if it has a propane tank, right? So
Yeah,
that
the
would be
propane has a
fee.
separate disposal fee, and it's a separate tank setup.
Any other questions for the director? Okay, I have a motion to accept Public Works as changed.
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We are moving to parking and transportation. The parking manager, Ben Fletcher, is here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
48.
Just to A couple of quick changes in the manner of consistency throughout the document. If you look at valet parking on page 48, last time it was touched was FY20, so it will be 5 years between the last change to FY25. The idea here is just to change that rate to make it match what it would cost to rent a metered space in A or B zone anyhow. So these are the short-term valet situations, not the annual valet situations. So it just made sense to us to charge the same rate for basically the same product. The second one, just below that, is changing the Hanover snowband rate from $5 to $10. When you look at the Foundry snowband rate, it is 25% of the daily max, which is equivalent to 5 hours of parking. That's $5 on a $20 max. Changing this to $10 on a $40 max is 25% of the daily rate. So it makes sense to us to be consistent there. And then I do have one other that, if it's not the venue to talk about this now, but I had intended to put this in to page 50 for resident Sunday parking at Foundry, to change that from free to $5 per event, which is the regular event rate at Foundry anyhow. So that did not get put into this, and that's probably my fault, but if this is not the venue to discuss a new item, perfectly fine. We'll just leave it flat for the year and then readdress it next year, but that's something on page 50 that I want to draw attention to, if we could have a discussion on that.
What were you changing?
So the resident Sunday rate,
Free Sundays.
yeah, is currently free, and just make it into the $5 event rate that we would have for any other event at Foundry.
Are there any questions for Ben? Councilor Murrow?
I guess in trying to make things fair, so you're saying
Just consistent, yeah.
consistent, and I like the idea of your increase because Foundry's $3, where Hanover would be 10 for like snow parking.
Sure.
So-
Excuse me, five in
Five.
total, yeah.
It's 5 at, whatever.
Correct.
So Foundry is now 5 if it snows, so
Correct.
that's why 5. Okay, I was trying to equate Sunday to be
Correct.
like a snow day. That's all.
Right.
Didn't want it to change.
Councilor Tabor?
So the history of the free parking on Sunday for residents, correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be at Hanover,
At both garages, yeah.
At both garages.
both garages. Then we took it away in Hanover, but we said we'll keep it at Foundry.
Correct. Since 2019, or since FY19.
Now it's going to make it look a snow day.
Now it's going to be $5.
Same as any other event or snow day event.
Can I ask a question, Ben? Is there a way to track, or do you have data on how many residents for a period of time have been using Foundry on a Sunday?
Top of my head, no ma'am, but it's easy to find.
Might be worth knowing and being able to bring that forward to council.
Okay. And again, this wasn't highlighted, and that's probably my fault. But if we wanted to leave it free for another year, that's perfectly fine. We can address it next year as well. So
It has a long history going back to Nancy Clayburgh as assistant mayor, I think.
I'll suggest that maybe we'll revisit this ask next year. We'll
Okay.
have some data.
perfectly fine. Just wanted to bring it up if it was appropriate. I think that's it.
We will not do the $5, keep it free. Can I have a motion to accept the highlighted changes in parking?
So moved.
Second? Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move on to water and sewer, page 53.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Ben.
Right.
Brian Getz, Director of Water. We don't have a whole lot of changes in water and sewer. I basically direct you to page 55, where we...
We can start with
There's
53.
53.
Okay.
Stormwater as well.
Sorry.
Stormwater connection.
Stormwater.
I jumped over to stormwater. Okay, yes. Speaking with staff on the stormwater connection fee, this is more typical of what is necessary for the connection, so the recommendation is to jump this up to $400.
Right, so that's basically
So
combining the permit
yeah, it's
and the
combining the
connection.
Combining the two, because it got confusing for the applicant, and also our staff, and the two are the same, so we just rolled them in together.
You need both.
Yeah, they were doing both anyway.
Yes.
All right, page 55.
Thank you, Andrew. Every year, we have been increasing the larger fees for the fire services based on the cost of service study done by our rate consultant on water and sewer. So these fees, beginning with the 4-inch all the way up to the 12-inch, are recommended to increase by that rate, as well as the hydrants to municipalities, which include all of our neighboring towns and the city of Portsmouth.
Hydrants are on the top of page 56.
Yes, page 56. Thank you. So that fee is, again, to increase $25, which we've been doing the last 8 years, to $400 a hydrant.
We have some question, Brian, because in gray on the screen, but not in a version over here, whether the dumping fee should, is there a recommendation to increase the dumping fee from 75 to 100?
Yes, that was a last-minute change based on the cost for that, and also disposal. There are a number of communities surrounding us that have raised their fees considerably. So the Pease wastewater system receives septic, and this is more applicable to the cost. We're also this year going to revisit this a little more in depth, so the $100 may, for the time being, just kind of be a place mark to get that up there. We're experiencing quite an increase of hauling to the Pease plant of the septic, so it's good in some respects. People are getting their septics cleaned out, and that's a good thing, but kind of unexpected. When we raised our fees a number of years ago and then started charging a little more closely to what it used to be more of an on your honor type thing. We have a card system now. The amount of septic we received went way down, and of course anecdotally we heard people were going to the surrounding towns because it was less money and less hassle. And lo and behold, when those towns started, raising their rates, and some places no longer even accept septic, they're all starting to come back to us. So that's why we recommend that.
Does this at least make us now equal with the other communities, or maybe a little
Yes,
higher?
we're equal with Newmarket. Some others are still just a little bit less, but we're gonna visit that more wholeheartedly this year. So next year we'll have a firmer number. It won't go down.
Any other questions for Deputy Public Works Director Getz? I have a motion to accept his changes.
So moved.
Second.
Any other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, last but not least is the Planning Department, page 14.
Okay, so just an overview, a lot of these changes are because things haven't changed in quite a while, and so it's really just trying to keep up with increased costs and labor costs. So the first one is a subdivision application for a residential subdivision. The request is to raise it from $200 to $250, and the last time that went up was, or last time that fee change was 2015. I'll just go through them all if there's questions. Then the non-residential subdivision application, similarly, that's recommended to go up $50. Last time that went up was 2015.
Page 15.
This is something that is more of a cleanup. The restoration of involuntary merged lots, we've stopped charging on the advice of the city assessor because involuntary merged lots are something the municipality requires. And I guess there's some discussion as to whether we can or can't charge for it, but our policy has been not to charge for it. So we stopped charging for that, but want to clean up the fee here to reflect that.
Doesn't the statute just require us to restore them if the trail?
It requires them to be restored, and yeah, so charging, I mean, there's some contested ones, obviously, you see, but
Is that law ending, though? It had an expiration date, didn't it?
I thought it was extended.
Oh.
Yeah. Wetland conditional use permits, this is an increase from 100 to 150 on the smallest applications. This is last time it went up was 2017, so we thought it was appropriate.
Peter, is there a reason why you didn't recommend increasing the up to 1,000 square feet? Last time that was looked at was in 15.
Yeah.
Just curious.
We thought about it. It just seemed like 500 was a, there's a lot that do hit the 1,000-foot threshold, and it just didn't seem, I don't know.
Maybe up to 250 square feet should be $250, or a quarter of it. I don't know, what's a
Quarter would be 125.
125.
So it would only be going up.
All right, I keep the 150.
All right. Didn't mean to open a can of worms.
No, it's okay.
I was trying to do the math in my head.
It was more that, just looking at the applications we get a fair number of, not significant in some ways, and so 500 seems like it was still working. Planning Board of Adjustment, so the Board of Adjustment fee for each unit over 4, that has stayed at $50 for some reason since 2015, so we thought that should be more in line with the other ones, so we brought that up to $150. Residential application accessory structure only, so accessory structure application we raised to $100. Last time that went up was 2011, so seemed appropriate. Total application cap, so this is for just the most you'll ever have to pay for your non-residential application. We raised it from $3,000 to $4,000 to capture that. The cost for signs hasn't gone up, for the sign permit hasn't gone up since 2013, so we raised that up by $100 to $300 from $200. That's the recommendation. Then the final one, the appeal of an administrative decision. So this is the one that says NA, the last one. We're requesting that go from not being charged to $200, but the point here is only if the rehearing is granted. So if someone comes in to the Board of Adjustment and asks for a rehearing, and they're not granted the rehearing, they're not going to be charged. But if they're granted the rehearing, then they'll get a $200 charge.
Question?
The per 1,000 evaluation of new construction, it says pre-fiscal year '02 has been $5 and it hasn't gone up for a long, long time. Is there a reason we wouldn't consider raising that? I'm all about non-residents paying more, so you know.
I don't know that we've seen many of those.
Okay.
I think that was the issue there.
We just don't see it very often.
Yeah.
I was like, we didn't look at that, so why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
All right, page 16.
And then page 16, this is in site review, site plan amendment. So administrative approval after the work has been done. So when someone changes their site but doesn't come
Can get that.
ask for that change, it's sort of an after-the-fact permit. So we increased that from 500 to 600, and that hasn't gone up since 2017. Historic District Commission fees, a work session prior to application for approval. Currently, the last time we raised that was 2017 at $200, and we're requesting to raise that $50. Residential applications for 1 and 2 dwelling units haven't gone up since 2015, and we're asking to raise that by $50 on each of those. Then accessory structures, mechanical equipment or replacement of doors and windows, that hasn't gone up since 2015. We thought $150 would be appropriate. And then the total application fee, this is the cap fee again for HDC application. We're raising that from the maximum from $5,000 to $5,500 for a really big project, obviously. And then non-residential applications, accessory structure, mechanical equipment, or replacement of doors and windows in the HDC from 100 to 150, and that hasn't gone up since 2015.
Any questions for Director Fritz?
Move to approve.
Second?
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Great, I think we're done.
public
Happy to go back to public comment.
Yep. Anybody from the public that would like to speak?
We have no one on Zoom.
Petri Huda, 2A South Street. I guess we went through this quite quickly, and first of all, I'd like to thank Massimo because he helped me understand a different perspective on the outdoor dining. But we went through that quick, and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I wasn't really sure if everybody understood what happened. So I'd kind of like some clarification on what you actually approved to move forward. So if I understand it correctly, it's going to be $5 per square foot for the actual size of the parking space.
Or the area used.
Or the area used. So then that means the second item on this memo, the 1,500 goes away.
Correct.
Correct. So then what happens with the 1,000 minimum application fee? That went down to $750?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess my only question or comment was that I find it very interesting that the staff went through all this work again to price all this out. You sent this to the EDC, and then you come back and take it down again. So that would be my only comment, because those are all volunteers that put in a lot of work on this, and the recommendations seem to be passed to the side.
If I can comment on that, if you wouldn't mind. The EDC was very careful not to weigh in on fees. They did not want to wade into those waters. They didn't feel like that was appropriate, and they wanted to purposefully leave it to the fee committee, but Director Britt says something.
Could I just add something too? This isn't the EDC recommendations. This is just a accounting of where we are. It's not a recommendation.
Okay, so my comment on that was I was at all these meetings, and I was particularly excited, that somebody actually was looking at how much it actually cost all our city staff to do all of the work here. And it was a recommendation to include all the costs here when everything came forward. So I think that's what we're seeing here, and I think there was a great job doing this. And this is the third year that this has been done, and it's just, going to go by the wayside. My only other question was when you went and I was trying to write down quickly here, when you did the dumping fee of 1,000 per gallons, it was on the screen, which I couldn't see, but it wasn't in the book, so I didn't get the number. If I could
I'll
just.
pull it back up.
I thought it was 75 to, it changed to $100.
75 up to
Was it on, Brian, which page here?
I can't
Yeah.
see it.
Yes.
I'm looking.
It's page 56.
Oh, thank you. I can find the page.
There.
It's fifth from the bottom. Goes from $75 per 1,000 gallons to 100.
Thank you. And the other thing I would like to thank you for is not increasing the parking fee at the Foundry Garage for residents. I think that's important to a lot of people, and they depend on that. So I'm glad you did not take that up this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.